There's a sticker on the front of a mower right now that's technically legal and completely misleading. Most American mower brands aren't built here. They're assembled here. Toro runs assembly lines in Wisconsin and Florida, but the engines powering those mowers are made in Japan. Craftsman, once the most red, white, and blue name in American tools, is now owned by Stanley Black & Decker, bolted together domestically from parts sourced overseas. That's not an accident. That's a loophole. A mower can wear Made in USA and still be built from a motor, a frame, and blades that never touched American soil. So I went looking for the brands that don't need the loophole. 4 companies still build the whole machine here, start to finish. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which ones and why almost nobody else still does it this way. Here's the loophole, spelled out. Assembled in USA and built in USA sound identical. Legally, they're worlds apart. Assembled in USA means the final bolt gets tightened on American soil. That's it. The engine, the frame, the blades, the hydraulics, all of it can be manufactured somewhere else, shipped in as components, and snapped together at a domestic facility. The label doesn't lie. It just doesn't tell you the part that actually matters. Toro is the textbook case. Assembly plants running in Wisconsin and Florida, American workers on the line, an American address on the box. But open the hood, and the engine driving that mower was built in Japan. The company isn't hiding it. It's just not the headline on the packaging. Craftsman tells the same story from a different angle. For decades, this was about as domestic a brand as existed in American tools, the kind of name that meant your grandfather's garage. Today it's owned by Stanley Black & Decker, and the mowers are largely assembled here from parts sourced overseas. The name stayed. The manufacturing didn't. This isn't a technicality you can shrug off. It determines whether your money is funding a full domestic supply chain or just the last 10 minutes of a much longer overseas process. It's the difference between American jobs building an engine and American jobs installing one. It's the difference in quality control, in how fast a part gets replaced, in whether the whole thing was engineered under one roof or stitched together from a dozen countries. So here's what this video actually does. We went and found the companies that skip the loophole entirely, the ones that still forge the steel, build the engines or source them domestically, and run true vertical manufacturing on American ground. 4 brands, verified facility sizes, employee counts, ownership structures, no marketing copy, just receipts. Let's start with the one that began in a 20,000 square foot plant with 20 employees and turned into something much bigger. Brand number 1 is Boy Mowers, and the origin story is about as garage startup as it gets in this industry. Founded in 1998 in Batesville, Arkansas, the company started in a 20,000 square foot plant with just 20 employees. No conglomerate backing, no outside factory network, just a small team in a small Arkansas town trying to build a better zero-turn mower. The growth from there is the part that gets overlooked. By 2014, that original 20,000 square foot operation had exploded into an 800,000 square foot facility employing more than 400 people. That's a 40-fold jump in floor space in roughly a decade and a half. And it didn't stop there. Today, Bad Boy operates more than 1 million square feet of manufacturing space spread across multiple plants, all still in Batesville, all still building the machine from the ground up rather than shipping in finished components. This isn't a legacy story coasting on an old reputation either. In 2023, Bad Boy announced another expansion, this one adding 300 new jobs to the Batesville operation. And as recently as December 2025, the company announced plans for a new $10.5 million tractor assembly plant in Monroeville, Alabama. That's not a company resting on decades-old manufacturing infrastructure. That's active, current investment in domestic production, happening in real time, in the same news cycle you're watching this video in. So while other brands were quietly moving engine production overseas and calling it assembly, Bad Boy was pouring capital into new American square footage. 20 employees in a 20,000 square foot plant to over 1 million square feet of active manufacturing in under 30 years. That's the trajectory of a company that never needed the loophole in the first place. But Bad Boy isn't the oldest name on this list, not even close. The next brand traces back to 1933, 4 employees, and a rotary tiller built during the Great Depression. Brand number 2 is AriensCo. And this one goes back further than almost anyone expects. Founded in 1933 in Brillion, Wisconsin, by Henry Ariens, the company started with just 4 employees. 4 people, building the first American-made rotary tiller in the middle of the Great Depression. That's the entire foundation this company was built on. Here's what makes Ariens different from almost every other name in this industry. It's still family-run, nearly a century later. 4th-generation leadership, Chairman and CEO Dan Ariens, still carrying the family name on the building. No private equity buyout. No conglomerate absorption. No name license sold off to a holding company while the manufacturing quietly moves overseas. Just the same family, in the same Wisconsin town, for 4 generations straight. And this isn't a company that stayed small out of nostalgia. Ariens now employs more than 1,700 people, all tracing back to that original 4-person operation in 1933. That's the kind of growth that happens when a company keeps reinvesting in its own domestic manufacturing instead of outsourcing the hard parts. One acquisition tells you how serious this operation actually is. In 1982, Ariens acquired Gravely, folding it in as a commercial mower line. Today, Gravely alone makes up nearly half of Ariens' total business. That's not a side project or a badge-engineered add-on. That's half the company's entire operation, built on the same family-owned, domestically manufactured foundation as everything else they make. So while brands twice their size were licensing out their names and importing engines, Ariens just kept doing what it did in 1933. Build it themselves, keep it in the family, keep it in Wisconsin. But if you think 4 employees in a garage is impressive, wait until you hear about the company that traces its roots back to a bankrupt luggage manufacturer from 1920. Brand number 3 is Scag Power Equipment. And the backstory here is stranger than you'd expect. Founded in 1983 in Mayville, Wisconsin, Scag started as a division of Metalcraft of Mayville. But Metalcraft's roots go back even further, all the way to 1920, as a luggage manufacturer. A company that once built suitcases eventually became one of the most respected names in commercial mowing. That's generational metalworking expertise, just pointed at a different product. Here's the detail that separates Scag from almost everyone else on this list. Full vertical, in-house manufacturing. This isn't a company buying pre-made components and bolting them together. Scag punches, welds, and paints its own steel, and it does it across 5 separate factories, all in Wisconsin. Every major stage of production happens under their own roof, in their own state, and it goes deeper than steel. Scag even molds its own plastic fuel tanks at a dedicated plastics facility in Horicon, Wisconsin. Think about how unusual that actually is. Most manufacturers, even ones proud of their domestic assembly, outsource plastics and sub-assemblies to whoever's cheapest, often overseas. Scag just builds the tank themselves, in-house, because that's how they've always done it. This is what built in USA looks like when a company means it literally. Not final assembly of imported parts. Not a badge slapped on a finished import. Steel punched in Wisconsin, welded in Wisconsin, painted in Wisconsin, and even the fuel tank molded a few miles down the road. No outsourcing, no shortcuts, no loophole. That's 3 brands down, a startup turned manufacturing giant, a century-old family operation, and a company that refuses to outsource even its plastic components. But the last brand on this list didn't just build mowers domestically. It invented an entire category of mower that didn't exist before. Brand number 4 is the Grasshopper Company, founded in Moundridge, Kansas. And this is the brand that didn't just build mowers here. It invented the machine category this whole video is about. In 1969, Grasshopper introduced the first commercially viable zero-turn mower in the United States. Before that, the zero-turn simply didn't exist as a real product. It exists because this one small-town Kansas company built it. The innovation record backs that up. Grasshopper introduced dual swing-out control levers in 1973, and in 1983 or 1984, rolled out the first liquid-cooled, diesel-powered zero-turn mower in the industry. These aren't marketing claims. These are documented firsts, years ahead of the competitors that eventually copied the format. Trace the company back further, and the story gets even more grounded. Grasshopper's roots go to moorage manufacturing, founded in 1958, meaning the zero-turn mower was essentially born inside this single company's walls over more than a decade of development before it ever hit the market. But the detail that separates Grasshopper from every other brand on this list is ownership. No parent corporation, no outside investors, none. The company is still run today by the third generation of the founding Geyer family. While competitors got bought, merged, licensed out, or folded into massive equipment conglomerates, Grasshopper just kept operating exactly the way it started, independently, in Moundridge, Kansas, for over 60 years. So while Toro was shipping in engines from Japan and Craftsman was getting absorbed by Stanley Black and Decker, Grasshopper was quietly building the category itself, keeping full ownership and never once needing outside capital to survive. That's not just American manufacturing. That's American manufacturing that never left, never got sold, and never had to compromise to stay alive. 4 brands down. Now here's what ties all of them together. Bad Boy, Ariens, Scag, and Grasshopper aren't just old names with good marketing. They're the rare survivors of an industry that mostly moved overseas or quietly became assembly only. Privately or family held, still forging steel, still molding their own parts, still investing in the same American towns that built them. The brands shouting loudest about being American often aren't. The ones that actually are usually just let the factory speak for itself. Check the serial number on your own mower. You might be surprised what you find. And if this saved you from buying the wrong machine, subscribe. More of these are coming.